The Georgia Tech Ramblin' Wreck is a 1930 Model A that serves as our school's mascot. It's one of our two official mascots, this being the older of the two, the other being the Yellow Jacket.
The Yellow Jacket is the athletics mascot, while the Ramblin' Wreck is a synonym for the student body. And so it's kind of synonymous with the student body leading the team into the field, and really ties together and still says that the athletes are students and that we are all a Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech. You know, Division I football is something that's very important in the Southeast, and game day traditions such as this really make college football all that it is, especially in the South. It's a kind of history and tradition that I don't think you get in other parts of the country.
I've always been a Tech fan since I was a little kid, so it's always been a dream of mine to come and run out on Bobby High Stadium out on Grant Field behind the Ramblin' Wreck. I think it's one of the best traditions in college football. You know, there's not a lot of places that have a tradition like that. There's nothing quite like running out there on Saturday behind the wreck and getting ready to play a big football game.
This car itself has been on campus since 1961 as an official mascot. Many years before that, one of the dean of students here on campus, Dean Field, drove an old Ford, and the students started calling that the Ramblin' Wreck. But students themselves, kind of in that tradition, started keeping their own contraptions. They're barely running Model A's or whatnot. There was even a race that was held to and from Athens, Georgia, right before the Georgia game. After that, the administration started thinking that they should probably find an actual Ramblin' Wreck to be the mascot for the Institute. And Dean Dole, the following dean of students, walked out of his apartment one day, and lo and behold, there sat a newly restored 1930 Model A. He knew right then and there that that was the car that the Institute had to have. Our first major was mechanical engineering, so I think it's really only fitting that our mascot represent our student body and our ingenuity and our roots in engineering.
Let's go! Let's go Tech! Let's go! Let's go Tech!
The Ramblin' Wreck is a 1930 Ford Model A. Specifically, it's a sport coupe, which means that it is styled to look like a convertible, but it is actually a fixed top coupe with a canvas top. It is painted 1974 Lincoln gold and white. We keep most of the logos on the car, the same traditional logos that it had back in the 60s when it came on campus. The engine is a 3.3-liter inline four-cylinder L-head. Originally, when it was new from Ford, produced 40 horsepower. A far cry from the power of cars today, but the engine's more than enough for driving around campus. It's a 3-speed manual transmission. There's no power steering, there's no power brakes, it's all mechanical. It's about as simple as cars you can get, and that makes it pretty easy to work on. As driver, when my term's over, I get to keep the flags and the hood ornament and the running board step plates off the car. So every driver gets their own set of those. Probably the first decorations that'll go up whenever I get a house. The pennants on the car, they each say something different. The one on the driver's side says "To hell with Georgia," which is one of our school chants since Georgia is one of our biggest rivals. And the other one says "Give 'em hell, Tech." Again, just one of our chants.
Tech doesn't have ordinary fans. You know, it's not an ordinary school, so it wouldn't do right to have just an ordinary mascot. So when they do see the wreck come out, it's big on tradition, and the fans there, I mean, they love it.
Let's go Tech! Yeah, baby! Yeah! Let's go Tech! Yeah!
Our homecoming parade, like our mascot, is a little non-traditional. Instead of building your typical floats, students are challenged to construct some means of mechanical conveyance besides an ordinary automobile. And so you end up with mechanical inchworms, we've had ATVs and hamster wheels, all sorts of interesting contraptions that the sole goal is to get it from one end of the street to the other. And the winner isn't typically the person that does it the fastest, but just typically the person who manages to do it at all.
like any other tradition, any other mascot. It's something that just ties people together. It brings alumni back to the time that they spent as an undergraduate at the Institute. It's something that people can recognize anywhere. It's an icon, and people just relate to it. It's the term Ramblin' Wreck is integral to our fight song and to the very culture of Georgia Tech. So the Ramblin' Wreck as a car kind of symbolizes that.
Like all the jolly good fellows, I drink my whiskey clear. I'm a ramblin' wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer. Hey!
The rush of being in front of 55,000 different people with your team behind you, it's just an incredible adrenaline rush that really gets you pumped up for everything.
There's nothing more southern than college football and tailgating, so I guess we just took the tailgate onto the field with our own car.